Split is directed by M. Night Shyamalan and stars James McAvoy as Kevin, a man who has 23 different personalities living inside of him, and one of his personalities, a man named Dennis, has kidnapped these three girls and is keeping them in holding for something. And these three girls are trying to find a way out and figure out how they're going to survive this ordeal by trying to use the help of the less harmless identities, and that's all I'm going to tell you for what it's worth. Now, M. Night Shyamalan has had a very varying career. He's gone from movies that are like The Sixth Sense, which are great films and have stood the test of time. They were nominated for several Oscars as well, and they've gotten an immense amount of praise. They've gone from that to movies like The Last Airbender, which that didn't get Oscar praise at all. That said, this is a film that I was very excited for because, one, after The Visit, this was beginning a comeback phase for Shyamalan. So I was excited to see if he would end up making as good a film as his older films and whether he'd be able to live up to the promise of making as good a film as The Sixth Sense once again. And also because the thing about Shyamalan, and something I've noticed with him, is that if you give him just the right kind of thing to do in his films, he can do a terrific job of it. And I'm really happy to say that Split was a very good time. I really liked this movie. There are things about this film that I thought were harkening back to older Shyamalan films that I'm going to talk about a little bit in detail, but I really enjoyed this movie for what it was, and it was a very well done psychological thriller, and many things about it are very good. There are some issues with it, but we'll talk about that when we get to that. But for the most part, I was blown away by what Shyamalan has been able to do. This is his comeback for sure. Let's start with some of the best aspects of the film. For starters, the acting. Let's talk about Anya Taylor-Joy. She's playing this girl named Casey, who's basically the main girl out of the three girls who have been kidnapped. She is brilliant in this film. I've not seen her in other films before. I haven't seen The Witch. I'm sorry about that. But in movies, I have seen that sometimes when it comes to child actors, you can do very well in one film and you can do a little okay in the next one. In this film, she does a fantastic job. She was very good. There are some moments of dialogue she has with different personalities of James McAvoy which were fantastic, and there are some very nice moments of dialogue in those scenes. They were very well done. There's also a psychiatrist named Karen Fletcher who's played by Betty Buckley, and she was great. She was a lot of fun to watch. There were some scenes with her when she's talking to Kevin and these patient-therapist conversations are going on, and they were all really good. There were some very intense moments in these office moments as well, and she was very good at bringing the two aspects of the film together. She had some humorous moments as well. She had some more intense moments as well, and her conversations and the way she acted, she did a great job. I really liked her character. Now let's talk a little bit about James McAvoy, because here's an actor who I really like. He's done a very good job with movies like the X-Men movies, like First Class, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse, and I really like him in some other movies as well. Has anybody seen Wanted? Nobody's seen Wanted, has they? It's a fun movie. But in all these movies, he's done a very good job. And this movie, he takes on something that is very challenging. He is essentially playing 23 different people. I've actually read up on DID and its effects. And in the movie, when it's explored and when certain things explained, they're true. There are some things I think which are a little inaccurate though, which I want to check out a little bit, because there's one thing which seemed a little wonky. But for the most part, he is playing a character who is very challenging to crack, and he has these different personalities. And with every personality, it's not like he's changing his voice and just moving on with the same facial expressions and everything. He's completely transforming. In moments, he'll transform from Dennis, who is this hard man who is very strong, and he has a very deep voice, and then suddenly he'll turn into Hedwig, a 9-year-old boy with a very cutesy voice and a very charming tone to him, and sometimes he gets a little frightening as well. But the point is, he does that for every single personality. He doesn't just change the voice. Everything changes with them, and that is something which DID does, and in this movie they explored that spectacularly. James McAvoy gives a brilliant performance. He's outstanding in this one. I highly recommend just watching this movie for that, because he does such a good job. I'm kind of disappointed that this movie is releasing in 2017, because if this was in 2016, he would have definitely gotten an Oscar nomination. He is fantastic. Something else I really liked about this movie is that it harkens back to Shyamalan's older films in a way that it explores directional avenues that he used to use before. There are many times where you'll see Shyamalan trademarks in this film and your first reaction will be, oh man, this again. But in this film, this is actually refreshing. It's nice to see that the film starts off with a slower pace and that it continuously builds as the runtime progresses until it reveals an explosive third act. And the film manages these things in a spectacular way. There's never a point where you feel like, okay, this isn't working out, like this is a little wonky. Shyamalan's direction in this film is spot on the entire way through, and it's very confident. There are points where he'll show you something and you'll be a little confused by it, but he wants you to wait. He doesn't want to just give away everything. He trusts you to be like, hang on, I'll tell you everything. I will bring this whole thing together. And once he starts to bring in certain story elements together through the visual directions or through dialogues, and when you start to see these scenes merge together, it does so in a very beautiful manner. And that is something I really like, because that's something that Shyamalan has done in his previous movies and something that was done in his best movies. And when you see that getting done over here, it does feel good, because it takes you back to the time when Shyamalan was very confident about his direction, and this is definitely that kind of a film. This movie also has beautiful cinematography. This is a gorgeous looking movie. Some of the shots in this film I thought were amazing. There is a shot, a pan down shot, which reveals a certain personality of James McAvoy, which I remember seeing and thinking, you know, it's a standard shot, but wow, it just works so well. It is an incredible reveal. When you watch the film, you know what I'm talking about. But there's a beautiful reveal of one of his personalities, which I thought was fantastic. Also, the score in this film is very subtle. It's by a man named Wes Dylan Thompson. He's composed some stuff for TV before. He was really good in this film. The score is very minimal in this film, which I think is a very good choice, because it never made the forefront of the film. There's never a point where it's like there's a scene happening and then there's a booming score to it. It's used very, very subtly, and I really like that about this film, is that it's slowly built, just like everything else. This film builds on everything. Everything about this film slowly builds. The acting starts to build up slowly as the film goes on. Everything about this film always builds, and that is something which I really loved about this movie. Everything from the writing to the directing to the cinematography to the music to the acting, everything about this film, really almost everything universally came together and made a pretty damn good film out of it. I do have some problems with it though. There are a couple of things which I feel like could have been a little better, and for me that has to do with a couple of scenes where the characters decide to go into exposition. Like there's a scene where there's a Skype call happening between one character and another, and there's a lot of details being given about DID, which I understand are important, but in some points it just seemed like exposition. Like there's a few points where it's like, okay, we understood that, I can infer that from that, I can infer that, okay, why do we still have that so extensively? Okay, we can move on from there now. There's also a couple of points where Betty Buckley is talking to James McAvoy in the therapy sessions, and she'll say something, and then it's like, okay, we could have guessed that, didn't need to know that for that scene. So also the other two girls, while I don't think they were bad in the film, they were definitely not done as well as Anya Taylor-Joy's character. I feel like as far as their acting goes, they weren't given enough to do, or maybe it was the fact that the emphasis was never on them the whole time, so often they weren't given a chance to give the shining moments. They did get some great moments in the film, but I would say the first act, there were moments where it was a little wonky, and that brings me to my biggest flaw, is that the first act is slightly wobbly. There's a lot of moments where the film is trying to slowly build up things, and oftentimes it does feel like a bit slow burned for the sake of it being slow burned, and unfortunately it does affect some things and you start to notice a couple of irregularities, but that doesn't last. That's a very short amount of time. As the film progresses, like I said, it just gets better and better until it builds to a great finale, which I'm not gonna spoil, but it just builds, and I think that is amazing. Guys, in the end, Split is a really good film. I had a very good time with it. It is effective immediately a comeback for M. Night Shyamalan, which is good. I'm so glad I can say that. I'm so glad I don't have to look at Shyamalan and think, oh, that's a bad movie. He directed some bad movies. Now I can always look at him and say, yeah, he's back. He's a good director now. He had some mistakes, but now you can look at that and see that this is definitely his redemption. I really like James McAvoy in this movie. I love the cinematography. I love the direction, the writing. Almost everything in this film was spot on, despite a couple of flaws here and there, but it was still a great film to watch, and I highly recommend this film nonetheless. And of course, do check it out whenever you get the chance. I'm gonna give Split a 9 out of 10. So guys, Split, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. I might do a spoiler review of this because there's a couple of things I want to talk about in detail. So look out for that. I might just do that. You guys are the best. Thank you so much as always for watching. If you like this, please subscribe. And I will see you guys later.